Herod, Holtorf, Judah, Kip, Lindsay,
There's Kip.
Linstead, Lukens, Lynch, Mabry, Morrow, Ortiz, Puglisi, Ricks, Sharbini, Sirota, Snyder, Soper, Titone, Valdez, Velasco, Weinberg, Weissman, Wilson, Winter, and Young. Representatives Armagost, Bacon, Bockenfeld, Catlin, Doherty, Degree Kennedy, Dixon, Froelich, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Herod, Judah, Lindsay, Lynch, Morrow, Ortiz, Puglisi, Ricks, Sharbini, Soper, Titone, Valdez, Velasco, Wilson, and Rep. Winter.
I did. This is pretty exciting. And I'm also doing the choreography. That's amazing. Are they running or strolling?
I doubt they're running. Have you seen how fat some of those people are?
I have not, but I'm not going to ask.
Well, look at me, and that'll be an example.
That's strolling. It's a stroll. Welcome. You also missed the bill signing. you just, remind me next time. It's like, let's put soaper on the bill. I go, where? Soaper. So I decided to I noticed.
I think it was a cursed bill. I want you to know I've never had a bill like that where I've missed like every critical step.
And I never had a bill that was so, you signed by the government. What do you do?
Yeah.
So anyway, you didn't miss much, but it was kind of funny to say, where is he? I go, I have a story.
He should have just been like, he actually missed every step of the legislation.
But he's consistent. I like to say that Matt Soper is very consistent on bad bills. Okay, we'll get you next time, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
But it was funny.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Because you said yes before I even said yes.
Yeah.
You RSVP'd yes, like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm like, oh, good. And then
Yeah, no, it's because I got tied up. Next time, we'll just have
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move that the call be raised. Just Speaker, you're not the Pro Tem. So I move that the call be raised.
Members, it has been moved that the call be raised. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The call is raised. Mr. Schiebel, reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 298 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations, and Senate Bill 299 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Members, pursuant to House Rule 25I2, House Judiciary Committee will meet while the House is in session this evening. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, pursuant to the announcement that was just made, Judiciary is going to get going momentarily. We're going to hear the two bills that are on the printed calendar, 296 and 109, over there in Old State Library. Please head over there directly, and we'll gavel in as soon as possible. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the following bills be added to the special orders calendar at 6:15 p.m. Senate Bill 291, Senate Bill 148, Senate Bill 299, Senate Bill 297, Senate Bill 248, Senate Bill 271, Senate Bill 59, Senate Bill 295, Senate Bill 263, and Senate Bill 3.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders at 6:16. Representative Kipp. Members, you've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the House will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders. Representative Kipp will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the coat rule is definitely relaxed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 164 and Senate Bill 282 until tomorrow.
164 and 282 will be laid over until tomorrow. Thank you very much. Mr. Schiebel, will you please read the title of SB 23-291?
Senate Bill 291 by Senators Fenberg and Cutter, also Representatives Degree, Kennedy, and Martinez, concerning the Public Utilities Commission's regulation of energy utilities and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 23-291 and the Finance and Appropriations Committee report.
Excellent. Representative Degree Kennedy, we're going to the Appropriations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, we made some minor adjustments to the appropriations clauses that were added in the Senate, and we ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations report for SB 23-291? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations report is adopted. To the Finance Committee report. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, this bill comes out of the Joint Select Commission on higher or rising rate increases. So this was a bill that came out from meeting with a lot of the utility companies, the PUC, the advocacy groups, and most of all the consumers, and being able to really determine what was the cause of the rising rate increases this year. So we have been working tirelessly with all the utility companies, the advocacy groups, the consumers, and really trying to make sure that we made this as best as possible, and really trying to work collaboratively to making sure that this is the best possible. So there are some amendments that were put on in the Finance Committee based off of the stakeholdering that we were doing to making sure that this was good.
Thank you, Representative Degree Kennedy, or excuse me, Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L28 and ask that it be displayed.
Excellent. L28 has been moved and is properly displayed. Please tell us about your amendment, Representative Degree, or Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the first of two amendments to the committee report that continue the work that we were doing in the Finance Committee to try to grapple with some of the concerns that came from stakeholders. There were a few things that we knew were issues that we were working on at the time that we have continued to work on with those stakeholders. This includes clarifying the requirement to provide customers with options for high-efficiency electric space heating information, clarifying the way that the cost-benefit analyses need to be performed and limiting them only to new governmental clients, and clarifying a few things that we needed to make sure were explicit, that when we're asking certain gas utilities to provide information about certain electrical services, that only applies to dual fuel utilities when directed to their dual fuel customers, because it doesn't make sense to ask a gas utility to promote a different electric company's products. We ask for your support.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on L028? Seeing none, the question before us is, Representative Frizzell. You were leaping into it. Are you here to discuss L028? Representative Frizzell, you are here to discuss L028?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, please proceed.
Madam Chair, so excellent to see you again.
And excellent to see you again.
Why, thank you. I have one amendment to the Finance Committee report.
Right. Are you doing a substitute amendment for L028, or would you like us to consider L028 before we consider your amendment?
This is a moral dilemma. Yes.
Representative Frizzell.
Madam Chair, could I request a very, very, very brief recess?
Yes, the House will stand in a brief recess.
Thank you.
The House will come back to order. Representative Frizzell.
Thank you for your consideration, Madam Chair. I would like to move L026 to the Finance Committee report as a substitute amendment to L28.
Okay, L026 has been moved and properly displayed, and it is there as a substitute amendment. So, Representative Frizzell, please explain your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment simply eliminates Section 5 of the bill, or the vast majority of Section 5 of the bill, especially those areas of the bill pertaining to the gas incentives being eliminated or phased out. I would ask for an aye vote to this amendment.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on L026? Representative or Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm fine with representative for what it's worth, so we can keep it simple. I ask for a no vote on this amendment, members. I appreciate the concerns that are being brought forward, but what we're really talking about with the line extension allowances in this bill are the fact that ratepayers across Colorado are subsidizing new development to put in gas lines. And we believe that it's fine if a developer wants to put in new gas lines, but it should be those gas customers that pay for those gas lines, not the rest of us. And so I ask for a no vote.
Thank you. Representative Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a point of reference, it is very important that that the industry be able to phase out these incentives so that existing new construction can come to fruition and that these utilities be installed as per plan. This portion of the statute creates a kind of a hard stop on these allowances, which is going to be very detrimental to the construction of these new properties. Again, I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment for a couple of reasons. One, the discussion that this subsidizes that other customers for natural gas are underwriting this is true for a moment. But so too did those customers previously get that subsidy. So we're picking winners and losers. And secondly, and I hate to do this from a business standpoint, but I will, the more you can spread your fixed costs across a larger group of people, what does it do? It lowers the cost to the ultimate consumer. And so with a large development, this would, yes, have a 28% one-time subsidy to put in this infrastructure, 28% discount, I should say, or incentive, but that is more than made up by all those new customers. And oh, by the way, electricity has a 35% incentive. So now we're putting customers in a position, particularly in areas like where I live. I'm hoping that electricity comes down in price. But if I was to heat my home with electricity today, it would cost almost double what natural gas does. Almost double. And in the mountain towns that are right next to us, that's even more so. So let's just be fair to everybody. If we're going to let's give the consumers a choice. And if we're going to give incentives to one power source, let's give them an incentive to another power source. And let's also go by the basic rules of business that when I can spread my fixed costs over a larger population, I can drop the cost of that product. I just cannot support this bill at all if this section remains, because it is unfair to consumers and it's unfair to the principle of choice. And the last I knew, this country stands on choice. Person still can make the decision, absolutely, I don't want gas. And guess what? Then the builder and developer does not put gas into the house. But if that person wants gas, they have every right to have gas. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, lots of reasons to keep gas. One, especially in mountain towns, especially, well, anywhere, the energy density of natural gas is significantly higher than electricity. So let's touch on some actual science. So the energy density of natural gas is significantly higher. If you have a fragile grid like we have now, that's like usually, I don't know, one squirrel from going down for blocks and blocks, you don't want all of what is keeping your house's pipes from freezing, people from freezing. You don't want all that stuff on electrical heat. Electrical heat is much more expensive, much less efficient. And then what we always seem to forget is right now, because we're years and years and years and years away from any sort of what would be considered green, despite the fact that that means covering large areas of ground with black solar panels and windmills that kill the birds, and then thousands of miles of power lines, which are currently being blocked by environmental organizations. So right now, the most efficient way to heat your home and the least polluting way is with natural gas. The electricity has a very high energy loss in transmission. It has, so at the point from the briefings we've had, smart hearings and et cetera, the actual pollution footprint of electricity is much higher than natural gas, because natural gas takes that energy all the way up to your home and then it's in there. It's just, the line just has to be pressurized. With electricity, you have to have that continual electrical force behind it. It doesn't stay in the line. It has to be put in there all the time, and you have to have that. And then let's say you do have your power lines go down in the wintertime when, I don't know, maybe you're, I'm fond of not freezing to death. That's just me. But there are other people, I think, like me. certainly elderly, and then there are people that don't like their pipes to freeze. Now, if you have a squirrel take down your local grid, or you have a snowstorm take down an area, a lot of times that's because your power lines are above ground. Another beautiful thing about natural gas is they're underground. So we have a lower pollution footprint for carbon from CH4. Now, clean CH4, which is pretty clean. I'm not sure on these studies. I'm a little skeptical of them. I have to tell you the truth, all the stuff about nitrous oxide and all that. If you look at most gas lines and anybody who has gas, it burns pretty clean. There's very little soot. And any soot that is, or any NOx or anything that might be in it, can be easily removed with a couple of filters, 1 or 2. Very inexpensive. Or you can force people to commit to you can force people to commit to electrical. You can double their cost. You can double the pollution. Maybe you have this nice warm fuzzy about the electricity that comes into your house is clean, but it is tied to something. It is tied to some sort of generation, and right now, the electrical generation, especially given the fact that there are such significant losses, and it is such an inefficient way to heat, that your pollution footprint for that is much lower. And then you add the fact that we want to start adding electrical cars to it. Now, in the wintertime, it's not such a problem, but your electrical cars, your electrical transformers, a big problem that they have already is that the transformers are designed to cool off at night when the load is lower and the temperature is lower, and then by Newton's law of cooling, you're going to have a faster radiative rate. Now you start adding all of this stuff up to it, like electric heat during the night when it gets colder. Now your transformers never cool down. And then you add electrical cars, and your transformers never cool down. And then what happens if transformers never cool down? Oh yeah, transformers fail. What happens when transformers fail? Well, they don't step the high power down to low power, and now you're without electricity. So we have this dream of clean electricity that's based on a delusion that is so far away from scientific fact. And at some point, you should actually apply scientific fact to this. This gets back to the idea that if people are gonna die from your energy policy, you should at least understand the energy policy. Thousands of people freeze to death every year. Many more people freeze to death. Now, if you want to handle a heat wave and cold, what you need is energy. And again, the most effective way to do this is with gas, natural gas, cooking with gas. And if you're not cooking with gas, if you're heating with gas, your vents, it is completely vented. There are so many code restrictions on gas, natural gas lines, and venting those. I have to admit that I'm highly suspect of these studies that want to find something wrong with natural gas, and by golly, what do they find? Oh yeah, there's something wrong with natural gas, all right. It's pollutants and it's for the children, and you gotta get that out of the house. But what you've done is you've effectively quadrupled the price, and you've put them at risk. Now, when you install gas lines throughout, and you say, well, we're going to put these gas lines into a neighborhood, into a subdivision, that is the absolute most cost-effective time to do it. And if you start parsing out like which house gets gas lines, which house doesn't, you're already doing this in conjunction with sewer lines. You're doing it in conjunction with all the other digging that's going on. And if you put entire subdivisions and you essentially force them onto being electrical, because you haven't done the science and you haven't looked at the utilities, you're putting a tremendous amount of risk into the system. So what is this based on? This is based on the delusion that carbon dioxide has a significant warming effect in the atmosphere, and it does not. It absolutely does not.
Representative DeGraff, could we perhaps refrain from calling people's ideas delusions? That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is a highly unscientific opinion that carbon dioxide it contributes a significant amount of heat energy to the atmosphere. The heat energy in the atmosphere is primarily water vapor, over 97%, either in solar irradiance or it is in evaporation. Of that 3%, it was just confirmed the other day on one of the congressional hearings, 13%. I use 15% of the global utilization is from the United States, but of the natural 3,100 gigatons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, less than 1% is anthropogenic. So if you take all that together and you say of that 3%, you have 15% of 1%, you get about 0.004%. That's about 2 seconds of rain. So what we're doing is with this highly unscientific idea, that carbon dioxide contributes a significant amount of energy to the atmosphere, which is what climate is based on. And I've been sending this to everybody. I've sent it to all the scientists I can think of. I've sent it to all the members of this House. I've asked the members of this House that have science backgrounds to send it to their friends. The only thing what I've gotten back on it is absolute confirmation from some of the top scientists in the Navy. So I'm going to go with that. Some of the top weather scientists in the Navy. They said it was 100% accurate. So if the top weather scientists in the Navy say that, then I'm pretty good with telling you. This whole idea is based on carbon dioxide having a significant energy footprint in the atmosphere, and it does not. And because it does not, what we're doing is we are putting our electrical grid at risk. We need our electrical grid. I'm not advocating get rid of the electrical grid. We need a robust electrical grid. This puts your electrical grid at risk. These ideas that are unfounded in science, actual science, I'm not talking about narrative and political and media where they benefit from the existential ethereal threat that keeps you in a state of fear all the time. What I'm talking about is actual science. And actual science says that what this entire bill is based on is scientifically inaccurate. And that is very important. It is very important to know that it is scientifically inaccurate because energy policy is a matter of life and death. Energy policy is a matter of life and death. So falsify it. Show me I'm wrong. But what we're doing is we're putting our grid at risk, and more so we're putting our people at risk. And what people are we putting at risk? For extra cost, for not being able to afford it? We're putting the people that are most at risk at greater risk. We're expanding the risk for the people that are least able to take it. We're expanding the cost. We're at least doubling the cost for people that can least afford it. And that's in keeping up with the natural gas, which has been artificially propped up because of unscientific ideas like this. So if you want to help the people of Colorado, take the time, learn the science, make a sound scientific choice, stop vilifying natural gas, which burns cleanly into carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide, it doesn't matter if it's the carbon dioxide that you breathe out, or the carbon dioxide that combusts from burning a candle, or the carbon dioxide that comes out of your tailpipe from burning hydrocarbons. Carbon dioxide is carbon dioxide. It's less than a 3% impact on the overall energy in the atmosphere. Humans are 1% of that at best. The United States is 15% of that at best. The United States, or the Colorado would be 1/50th of that. And then you can divide that number by however many million happen to be in Colorado right now and get your impact on the overall temperature, the energy in the atmosphere. What I'm asking you to do is stop building energy policy on irrational fear. This is energy policy based on irrational fear. There is nothing in here that says what will be achieved by this. There's nothing in here that says we don't have any idea. I'll say again, we don't have any idea what our climate goals are. We're told our carbon goals, and this is part of our carbon goals, and I'm telling you the carbon goals will achieve absolutely nothing. They will cost trillions. That money comes and it hurts the people that can least afford to be hurt. It hurts the people that are greatest risk. The energy policy of putting everybody on an electrical grid hurts the people that can least afford to take that risk. You owe it to the people of Colorado to figure this out. Because right now, irrational fear is hurting the people of Colorado. It's driving up their rent. It's making housing prices. It's lowering value. You need to stop living in fear. This is an irrational policy. This will hurt people. Well, at least I told you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on L026, which is a substantive amendment to L028? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L026. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no. The noes have it. L026 fails. That brings us back to the underlying amendment, which is L028. Is there any further discussion? Representative Martinez.
All right, we request an aye vote for Amendment L28.
Okay, seeing no further discussion on L028, no further discussion. The question before us is the adoption of L028 to the Finance Committee report. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L028 to the Finance Committee report is adopted. Back to the Finance Committee report. Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L29 and ask that it be displayed.
L029 has been moved and is properly displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment actually partially walks back something we did in the Finance Committee. There's a component of the bill that was a beneficial electrification study that in the Finance Committee we turned into an investigatory proceeding, but we realized there were some other implications that came with that, so this amendment turns it back into a study. We ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on L029? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L029. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. L029 is adopted. Okay, back to the Finance Committee report. Is there further conversation on the Finance Committee report? Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have already described it. We ask for an aye vote on the Finance Committee report as amended.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report to SB 23-291? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Finance Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L23 to the bill and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. L023 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this amendment falls into infrastructure security. So when we were going through this process, this was something that was asked for through our work, our tireless work through the stakeholding by the utility companies to ensure that our infrastructure, our energy infrastructure is secure and that it's not going to fall in the hands of anybody that shouldn't have that. So this just really ensures that those that are looking into this more with the investigations and with the studies, that they have the information and it's not out there for public information. So we request an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on L023? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L023 to SB 23-291. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L023 is adopted. To the bill. Is there any further discussion on SB 23-291? Representative Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move L024 to Senate Bill 291 and ask that it be properly displayed.
Okay, L024 has been moved and is properly displayed. Please tell us about your amendment.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm happy to. Members, we are still discussing Section 5 of this bill, which really talks a lot about the line extension allowances and understanding that this allowance will be sunsetted. But in the bill as currently written, that sunset date is December 31st of 2023. That's just this year. And the concern, members, is that that's simply not enough time for industry to cover the costs and make up the funding that they really rely on to extend gas lines to currently planned subdivisions, currently planned communities in this state. So this is a really important thing that our utility providers rely on. And this particular amendment extends the date from December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025. So that's just a 2-year extension. And members, I ask for your positive vote on this amendment. It's very, very important to our communities, our new subdivisions, and our utility providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We discuss, I rise in support of this amendment. We discuss all the time about affordable housing and about getting housing built. But if the utility companies don't have the time and the funding to get this done, this creates a problem. So this gives them more time to be able to move forward with these projects that they've had in planning, that they have the plans for. They're already working through the zoning. They're working through all the issues that they need to work through to get this housing done. Then all of a sudden, they're going to pull back on this because at the end of the day, if they don't have the funding, they're not going to be able to move forward with their plans. So I think we need to take a serious look at this, extend this out, give them time, even though I, in the long run, don't think that they agree with this policy. And I know many of my colleagues don't. I don't myself. But at the end of the day, this gives them plenty of time to extend this out, to continue the projects that they have in place, to make sure that they have the funding, to put in the infrastructure, to build housing, to attempt to work on what everybody talks about in this building, which is the housing crisis. If we don't extend this and we rein them in I think it's disingenuous to the goal that everybody seems trying so hard to achieve. So I urge an aye vote on this amendment. Give them a chance to get done what they have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's some magic being worked in the well, Madam Chair. I gotta hope.
Representative Holtorf, would it help if I called a brief recess?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think you need to keep this train going down the track.
Okay, well, why
What
don't
I
you
do
do
want
that
to
for
say,
us then?
what I do want to say, Madam Chair, is the dream works when there's teamwork.
It does.
Now, I do have some concerns that a lot of, when you're doing development, there's so many phases to development. And enormous investments, the time phase approach to building with the sub work, and all the different schematics that have to be done for utilities. You know, we can start with water, electricity, gas, sewer. All those things have to be done. And a lot of that sub work has to be done before you ever start building a house or a home. And these projects take a lot of time, several years. So the reason this type of amendment is so valuable, I'm going to look back here with my good eye. This one's the 2-year. This is the 2-year extension. The reason that helps with the projects that are going on right now, if you think it's 2023, ma'am, this is happening right now. So by giving the extension, it allows for the industry to react, to make the changes necessary in their time-phased planning. Because in the construction projects that are going on right now, at different phases, you know, they could already have this in or laid in, and they're building on top of it. Or they could be beginning to do all the sub work in these developments and may not be in compliant with this type of legislation. Now, I didn't look until just now. And yes, there is a petition clause, Madam Chair, so that does allow for a little more time. But many times people say time isn't a friend of a developer. But I'll tell you, with getting these adjusted energy requirements in place and being able to petition for the funds and getting everything done that needs to get done, I think there's value. There's value in a little more time. And I've always said everyone wants to rush. But sometimes when you slow down, we do a better job, and that includes legislation, particularly complex, difficult legislation. But that was a previous bill we talked about earlier. I'm not going to go into that. But I do want to talk about Section 4 a little bit. This fuel cost sharing, gas utilities, electric utilities. So they are asking for a gas price risk management plan because of the volatility of fuel costs and the utilities gas cost adjustment filings that are in there. And then there's a plan for a maximum per month fuel cost that accounts for these price fluctuations and this mechanism. And here's what I want to tell the chamber. The best hedge against high prices, the best hedge, ladies and gentlemen, even outside the chamber, listen up. You know this. The best hedge against high prices is more supply. Create more supply. In fact, if you want prices to really go down, create an oversupply. Now, as the magic happens to my left, Madam Chair, I'm going to hearken back to cattle prices because that's something I know. When cattle prices are suppressed in our country, and I'm trying to close the rural-urban divide, so bear with me, Madam Chair, and I will get back to this page 11, section 4. It's because of oversupply. We have too many cattle in the domestic market. There's too much beef. Can you imagine? And our prices go down. And it hurts cattle ranchers at every sector. Now, with respect to energy, the same thing applies. But there's some distribution considerations that we can't overlook, and access considerations. But you can fix those too by having abundant supply. Electricity, natural gas, liquid propane. In my humble opinion, Madam Chair, we should try to develop and have available all of the energy resources in our energy portfolio. That would be the best situation for the consumer. And make sure that the consumer has choices. For us in rural Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me say it a million times. Where I live out in eastern Colorado, we've got to have gas. And what the bill sponsors were telling me is that this doesn't interrupt the availability of natural gas directly. That still is available, and electricity, which is important, very important to me. But getting back to this again with respect to the plan, and this is in the re-engrossed version, so I want you to pay attention to the re-engrossed version. In the re-engrossed version, the plan may include other elements such as physical hedging, financial hedging, fuel storage, or long-term contracting. How many people in here have done any hedging? Raise your hand. That's 2 of us. Anybody have a commodity broker? Raise your hand. There's 2 of us. I've done it too. 3 of us, 4 of us. 4 of us? Okay. Well, of those 4, how many have had a margin call over $100,000? That'll get your attention. Somebody's not telling the truth down there. But anyway, we good? Anyway, getting back to this, hedging is very complicated and it's very dangerous if you're on the wrong side of the market. Now, they call it in the money or out of the money when you're hedging. If you're in the money, the futures market that you've hedged against, and you can go long or short, okay, basis the board. You can go long or short. Now, the real easy way to understand that, long is in your buy position.
Can we get back to the amendment, please?
Oh boy, that's going to be hard to do, ma'am. I'll do my best.
I know.
I think you boxed me in, ma'am. What I think I'm going to do is ask the professor to come up and talk a little bit, because I can talk to commodity markets, because I've been on top of the world and I've been under the world.
I do believe Representative Mart.
Oh,
Okay.
hold on. We have the Madam
Majority
Majority
Leader.
Is, can I
Madam
step
Majority
down?
Leader.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on to it. I'm sure you do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to lay over Senate Bill 291. One bill, please.
Okay, Senate Bill 291 will be laid over one bill. Oh. Perhaps somebody would like to withdraw that amendment.
Oh, it's Frizzell's.
It is Representative Frizzell's amendment. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to withdraw my amendment L024. Thank you.
Okay, L024 is withdrawn. Madam Majority Leader?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 291, one bill.
Thank you. Mr. Shebel, I'm sorry, Senate Bill 23-291 will be laid over one bill. Mr. Shebel, can you please read the title of SB 23-148?
Senate Bill 148 by Senator Cutter, also Representative Lindsay, concerning property used to illegally manufacture drugs and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 148 and the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report.
Okay, did you get the appropriations report too, Representative Lindsay?
And I move the Appropriations Committee report.
Excellent. To the appropriations report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In appropriations, they allocated some money for this program.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the appropriations report to SB 23-148? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the appropriations report to SB 23-148. Seeing none, I'm sorry, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. As the appropriations report is adopted. To the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government report. Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, I added a couple of amendments to the bill. As this came out of the Senate, there were a couple of unintentional places where we narrowed some language. So I just wanted to make it clear that in this bill, the requirement is that any property where meth was manufactured, used, or stored would be included in this database. The second amendment just made it clear what kind of industrial hygienist is able to perform remediation work, and I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report to SB 23-148? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government report. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. The Transportation, Housing, and Local Government report to SB 23-148 is adopted. Representative Lindsay, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. SB 148 is a bill that requires the Colorado, or CDPHE, I'll shorten it, to create a public online database of residential property used with methamphetamine manufacturing, storage, use. Meth fumes can be very sticky and can adhere to porous surfaces in homes, making them virtually uninhabitable, potentially health risks for the people living there. So this bill requires that law enforcement agencies and certified industrial hygienists report illegal drug laboratories to CDPHE following notice requirements outlined in this bill. It also says property owners submit remediation documentation to the CDPHE. And after 5 years, the department will remove a properly decontaminated from the database. And this also says that residential properties without compliant remediation should be deemed uninhabitable. It's a great bill. It comes from a constituent, and it's an issue that we need to be taking care of so everybody has transparency when they're searching for housing to rent or buy. And I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like this bill with one exception. And in the engrossed version, it's on page 4, and it's from lines 12 to 14. And I ask that this either be struck and/or modified. And here are the reasons. And I can tell everybody is looking at the bill. We are in section 5, on page 4, letter A. Here's the problem with letter A, and I'll read it to you. The seller is not required to disclose that the property was used as an illegal meth drug laboratory to a buyer. What's wrong with that picture? They're not required to disclose that. Yet, if you studied this bill for 5 years, this property sits on a database that the consumer can find the information that this was, in fact, a meth lab. So think of the position we're putting the seller in. We're telling the seller he or she is not required to disclose this information. Yet if the buyer finds out this from a credible database, a state database, no less, what are you going to think about the seller? I know if it was me as the buyer and I found out that the seller was not disclosing this information, I would do everything in my power to void the deal. Everything in my power to void the deal. And I ask just for a simple request on this. Either say that you need to disclose it if it's within that 5-year period, or take this out, because you cannot put a seller and a buyer in a conflicting situation and put it in state statute. Really? We're going to put in state statute a situation that a seller doesn't have to disclose a very serious situation. Has anybody been around a meth rehabilitation situation? We had it take place in one of our Grand Junction housing authorities, a 4-story apartment complex. It cost us $2.5 million to rectify the situation. $2.5 million. We can't put buyers and sellers in this position. So once it comes off the list, if it's off the list, that paragraph's not needed, because there's nothing to disclose. It's been certified. But while it's on that list, we can't put buyers and sellers by way of a statute into a situation that one now doesn't trust the other, because we as the state told them, you don't have to disclose this information. Really? It amazes me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, Representative Hartsook?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we debated this issue a lot in committee, and it was one of those, from a common sense business perspective, let's disclose it. It's a simple disclosure on the sheet. And this is one of the things that, if you're going to buy a house, you should have the right to know that meth or any other drugs are put in there, and it absolutely needs to be on that database for 5 years. I had kind of argued that it should be on there longer because law enforcement wants to be able to track trends in a neighborhood or in a region or movement of going through. And I mean, that's something that I think we should consider, because just if you remediate a house, but there's still a trend that's going on in the area, and we expunge that data from the database, then that doesn't exactly help law enforcement figure out where those trends are moving, up or down, sideways, or anything. And that's something that we need to be aware of. From a realty perspective, and a consumer perspective, you should have every right to know that you're in a house that meth was run out of, or any other drug for that matter. And that if you're in what would be considered a high drug area, if you're going to do your due diligence, that's something that if you choose to buy it, that's fine, I don't care. But you have that right to you have the right to that information. And that is something that I think is critically important. So these are some of the things that I guess what I'd like to know. I know when we discussed it in committee, if the sponsors have got any feedback on that, then I'd love to have some of that information. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, yeah, I agree with my colleague. That's that at least in reading it, and perhaps the bill sponsor can shed some light on it. But maybe we should have had you come up first, if there's any light to shed on it. Okay, good. All right, because my concern here would be if somebody buys a house, meth lab house, that's remediated, most likely, I think the way I read the rest of this, I'm still catching up, would be that they would most likely get it at a reduced rate because obviously there's not a big demand out there for meth lab houses, I'm pretty sure. So in the initial side, the initial buyer is going to know that they're on the list and it's remediated and most likely get a discounted rate. But then in a flip situation, while it's still in that 5-year zone, then, which seems to be a risk period, otherwise there wouldn't be I'm thinking there wouldn't be a 5-year if there was not a risk associated with it. So inside of that 5-year, then the person could flip the house, not disclose it, and then actually have a financial incentive to not disclose it. So if they have a financial incentive to not disclose the fact that it was a meth lab, then whoever comes behind them goes, oh, well, this is a normal house, and then to find out that they're on a 5-year registry. So whoever knows that they're on a 5-year registry is probably going to be in a advantage position as far as the buyer goes. At least that's the way I'm reading it. So if it's not disclosed, and that's an interesting thing not to disclose, just because anytime you buy a house or sell a house, you're supposed to disclose absolutely everything, like any water leaks, whether they've been resolved or not, any mold issues, whether it's been remediated or not. You have to disclose all of these things, but then for some reason, all of a sudden, in the case of meth lab, which, no kidding, will kill you. So I think it's interesting reading it because it's certainly not, I don't know, I can't even imagine I think it's just an inadvertent way it's worded that would allow that inadvertent loophole. So, and then how that loophole could be exploited. I mean, we can only, but it would be good to close it, and it might be a matter of rewording it, or it might be a matter of taking that section out, because the next section after the 5-year date on the certificate of compliance is issued, the property is no longer included on the database. So if we just got rid of that section, then it would be a proper disclosure. There wouldn't be any sneakery as far as house flipping goes, where somebody could end up in although my understanding is they would be in a certified clean house. I mean, it's not going to be sold until it's a certified clean house, but there is a 5-year window on it for some reason, correct? Well, how about I just say, I would like to ask the sponsor that, and then I will step down, so I'm actually interested in the answer, so.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for those questions. There was a lot of discussion in the various committees for this bill. I will start off by saying that this bill was heavily stakeholdered and negotiated in the Senate, which brings us to the bill that we have today. And so after that, it was determined that the 5-year period would be enough for transparency for any potential renters or home buyers, while also not stigmatizing a home in perpetuity that there was once meth activity here. With the 5 years, information indicates that if there is going to be any issues with remediation, that would present itself within the 5 years. So that's kind of what we have come up that, protects sellers, make sure that they don't have this property that is an asset that will be forever labeled this way, but that also offers transparency for any potential home buyer or renter. And a seller can, at any time, always voluntarily disclose the status of their home. We would hope people that would do that, just to have a good faith transaction. But there will be this database. It will be searchable for anybody to look at. And also, anybody at any time can have their home tested and remediated, whether they know that there was a problem in this house or not. So some of that is, you know, as you as a potential home buyer or homeowner, that's something that you can take on your own volition. I'm trying to think of what you had said about, did you ask about? Yeah, I think that my point being, this was just very heavily stakeholdered before it even got to the House. This is the bill that puts everybody in a place that's workable. And that's why you see the language that is there, that people concerned about health effects, and then the folks that are working with real estate and homeowners and all that, this is the place that we have come that we can all work together.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. And this is why we have the discussions in the House as well, to make sure that we catch anything, because it's easy. I know when you're reading a paper and you're editing it, you kind of tend to read it towards how you think it says. And so, so heavily stakeholder in the Senate, so we're kind of catching up with this with our discussion. And this is where we have time for that. 5-year period, enough for the transition transparency for home buyers, and enough time that if there's something wrong, that it can be in there, that you would see it inside of that 5 years, conceivably. I mean, really, if it's remediated, it should be done, right? But then the 5-year adds to transparency. So the house is confiscated, it's remediated, it's put on the market, and then so my problem here is still that, let's say somebody buys the house, and they keep it for, I don't know, 2 weeks, 1 year. 2 years would get them outside the capital gains window, so maybe 2 years before they flip it, so do some work in the meantime. But at the end of that 2 years, it's still in that 5-year window for remediation, but the seller wouldn't have to disclose it until that, so the seller wouldn't have to disclose it in this case. So we have a 5-year window, which benefited the first because they would have to know about it. But then the second owner who's buying it would not have that. I mean, they could go and search it, and I guess at some point, people are going to have to know to look on the meth lab registry. So I know they're working on an amendment. Maybe we ought to just discuss it at that point. But I think it does leave a window where somebody could buy the property and then they don't know about it when they should know about it, because really the buyer is required to disclose everything, but then we say specifically don't disclose this. So I agree with my colleague that this could just be tightened up a little bit by just getting rid of this section or rewording it, because I think it creates conflict and in the wording. So I'm hoping that the amendment will just get rid of it, close that loophole, and then there's no questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fellow colleagues, I was in the committee for this one. There was extensive conversation. I think this does more harm to our citizens and our public safety than good. There's a few simple things that we discussed. A 5-year database, if a house is contaminated and the house falls off and continues to be contaminated, nobody's radar. It's on nobody's radar. We have big issues with this of trying to protect the public safety interests of all the citizens in Colorado. And I would pressure everyone in this chamber that you take this seriously, because public safety is the end-all be-all of why we're here. There were many things debated. One of the things very specifically, I'm not good at the talking business. Oh my goodness. I was asking for an amendment to this bill, which would, which would basically put it in to a permanent basis of when something is contaminated, you have to disclose. Right now, what this bill does is it loopholes out of contamination for disclosure for real estate agents. And that in itself, in its own essence, is incorrect. It's wrong. If somebody buys a house, it takes years and years and years to get a house decontaminated. Why in the world would we ever try to do something to the point of the safety of the citizens will be in jeopardy? This one was debated at length. I respectfully asked the bill sponsor to give me an amendment, which I believe would truly help the bill. I understand the good faith of the bill sponsor of having to go back to the senators and the stakeholders. It was still rejected. And even in committee, while I was asked what would it take for me to get to that point to sponsor, or not to sponsor, but to support this bill, we could never get to that status. Decontaminated housing is a big deal, especially for the city of Loveland. When drug dealers take advantage of homeowners or renters, we have a problem, and they literally ruin the foundation of the facilities. One of the biggest issues on this one is it again picks and chooses who is going to be able to disclose. Commercial properties do not disclose. So if you rent out a warehouse, turn it into a meth factory, you don't have to disclose it, and that's not even included in this bill. Once again, for this legislation, what I think we're doing is we're picking and choosing who should do something and who shouldn't. I again don't understand why we do that. If there truly is a problem with this, we should blanket the whole situation as it being bad. Do not go ahead and pick out who will be responsible for safety and who will not. This is really a bad actor that is taking advantage of a renter's household or an owner of a facility. And we're not winning at this one. If we could just take a minute and read through what's happening here, I think you would all stand in support of an opposition, unless an amendment could be brought forth to which we could make this bill way better for the safety of Colorado and its citizens within. Renters are jeopardized by this. And if we seriously cannot get to a place to where safety of Coloradoans and citizens in Loveland are to the forefront, then I cannot get to a point of support on this bill. I would truly hope and expect that everybody in this chamber would take a second to digest exactly what they're trying to do. It's a small contentious point of what we have to get to and know exactly where we're going to be with houses that are contaminated with toxic materials. I urge my fellow colleagues in this chamber here today that we vote no on this unless it's supported with a good amendment that will, again, at the premise of what I've been saying the whole time while I'm down here, is to protect the safety, well-being, and health for our Colorado citizens, and especially for Loveland. Thank you for your time.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Senate Bill 148 down one bill, please.
Thank you. And would you like to also, are we ready for 291, or would you like to go to 299?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to proceed out of order for this consideration of Senate Bill 299.
Thank you very much. We will lay over 148 one bill, and Mr. Sheeple, please read the title of SB 23-299.
Why I asked her to come with this.
Senate Bill 299 by Senator Cutter, also Representative Titone, concerning the requirement to acquire epinephrine auto-injectors for placement at institutions of higher education.
Thank you, Representative Titone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 299.
So moved to the bill. Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, this is a really important bill. It really comes from a place of tragedy, and why we're doing this today. There was an incident at a university where one of the students was having some food, and she had a severe allergy to milk, and she didn't know what she was eating had a milk product in it. She didn't have her EpiPen on her. She always tried to avoid eating this stuff, but sometimes there's a byproduct or something that's in there that you don't know about. And that was the case here. Nobody else had an EpiPen anywhere nearby. And she ended up succumbing to the allergic reaction, the anaphylaxis, and she died. And the mom of this young woman has been trying to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. So what the bill does is it says if you're a higher education institute that you're going to put these in. It's not requiring them, it's not forcing them to do it, it's encouraging them in a very strict sense to make sure that they have these EpiPens in the dorms and in the cafeteria. These are going to be the places where this is most likely to happen. And, you know, we have AEDs, we have life-saving equipment in a lot of these places already, and an EpiPen is a life-saving instrument. It really does mean life and death, and getting this to that person in a rapid manner is going to help them get through that episode. So the bill gets gifts, grants, and donations. I learned that you can donate directly to the institute that you choose to have them buy these. So if you really want to see these things go through and make sure that the university that you have a loved one go to, you can make those donations directly to them to make sure they have the funding, because it is going to be on them to get these, but it's something that they will want to do themselves because it is really important to keep the health and safety of the students. So I'm glad that Representative Bradley's here with me on the bill. She'll be getting on there as a prime sponsor. And I'll give her some time to chat as well.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the good representative for allowing me to ride on her coattails and let me be on this bill when we heard it in committee today. I don't think there was a dry eye. It was a very hard story to hear, and out of tragedy, I think that if we can make this world a better place, we should always do that. My son almost died from an avocado allergy. It was the scariest thing I've ever been through in my life. And if we have other life-saving devices, we should also implement EpiPens as well. So I'm so excited to be on this bill with you, and I hope we can do some amazing things for Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23-299? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23-299. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. SB 23-299 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader?
Madam Chair, I'd like to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 297.
Thank you. We will move to 297. And Representative McLaughlin and Representative Catlin look like you're ready to go. Who would like to go first? Representative McLaughlin. Oh, Mr. Schiebel wants to go first. I am so sorry. Mr. Schiebel, will you please read the title of SB 23-297?
Senate Bill 297 by Senators Zenzinger and Peltonar, also Representatives McLaughlin and Catlin, concerning the expansion of the the America 250 Colorado 150 Commission and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move 297 on second reading, please.
So moved. Please tell us about your bill.
Yeah, this is something that we passed last year. It's a celebration of the 250th anniversary of America and the 150th anniversary of Colorado. And this is, they have a committee. We're expanding the committee just a little bit, and the money just goes that we got from appropriations is just going to
help them raise money for this celebration for all of Colorado.
Thank you. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a bill that's going to help us celebrate. We're going to celebrate the 150th birthday of the state of Colorado and the 250th birthday of the United States of America. It's unique to Colorado because we are the centennial state. They'll be celebrated at the same time. So we put together a bill last year to organize a committee to help set this up statewide so that we'd be able to do this on a statewide basis, regardless if you live in Cajon or if you live in Akron or if you live wherever you live in the state of Colorado, that you'll be included in the celebration of Colorado's 150th birthday. What this bill is doing is bringing 4 more people onto that commission so that they can go out and start raising the funds and continue to raise the funds so that the state of Colorado can have one great birthday party. So if you like to celebrate, this is a good bill. Vote yes.
Thank you. Representative McLaughlin.
It's been requested that I throw the word sesquicentennial into this discussion, so sesquicentennial.
Whatever
Just so that
is
you know, I
noted.
can shove that into any conversation now.
Well, my mouth won't make those shapes, so I can't say that.
Okay, I think we got it. Sesquicentennial is noted. Thank you, Representative McLaughlin. Is there further discussion on SB 23-297? Representative Bottoms.
You just want to say the word,
I don't want this bill to move through before we address something that could be a travesty. I see a safety clause on this, and I need one of the bill sponsors to address this for me before we move on.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you. I am delighted to answer this question. Well, not really delighted to answer a question about a safety clause, but here we are. Yes, we need to get going on the fundraising pretty soon because it's not state money that's going into it. These people are there to raise the money for this celebration, and we want to make sure that it gets going right away.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23-297? Representative Ehill. Real quick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I just wanted to inform you all that the city of Colorado Springs is in fact older than Colorado statehood. We have already celebrated our sesquicentennial, which is why I can rattle the word sesquicentennial off that quickly. It is sesquicentennial. It is 6 syllables. Just practice it a few times. You'll nail it in a few tries, I promise.
Excellent. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since Colorado Springs has already celebrated and didn't invite us, I guess we'll cut them out of this party then.
Okay.
Good bill, vote yes.
And with that, if there's no further discussion on SB 23-297, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23-297. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no. The ayes most definitely have it. SB 23-297 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 248.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schiebel, can you please read the title of SB 23-248?
Senate Bill 248 by Senators Rodriguez and List and also Representatives Mabry and Weinberg concerning consumer protection in certain credit transactions.
Thank you. Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 248.
Thank you. Who would like to tell us about SB 23-248?
Stand by.
Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fellow colleagues, this is fairly straightforward. The fiscal year for Uniform Consumer Credit Code, we're adjusting the license renewal date from January 31st to July 1st of each year starting in 2024. This puts the state back on track to what it should be doing. I truly don't even know why this is not the way it is currently, and I urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Senate Bill 248 is a cleanup bill. As my co-prime sponsor from Loveland mentioned, it's a no-brainer. This is a cleanup bill to help improve operations in the Department of Law. It codifies long-standing interpretations
and it benefits the regulated industries by allowing them to work from home and alleviates other administrative burdens. Basically, this bill gets at cleanup for renewal dates and fees under the Uniform Consumer Credit Code, and also does some cleanups in the Colorado Student Loan Equity Act. It's a technical bill about good governance, and we urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on SB 23-271? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption. Oh, I'm sorry, 248. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23-248. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. SB 23-248 is adopted.
Good job.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 271 to the end of the calendar, special orders calendar.
Seeing no objection, 271 will be laid over to the end of the calendar. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 59.
Thank you. Mr. Sheeple, will you please read the title of SB 23059?
Senate Bill 59 by Senators Baisley and Roberts, also Representatives Catlin and McLaughlin, concerning providing funding to local governments to support access to state-owned outdoor recreational areas and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you, Representative McLaughlin.
Yes, I move Senate Bill 59 to second reading, please.
Thank you very much. Who would like to tell us about your bill? Representative McLaughlin.
Yes, most of you know about the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. It's something that you can get when you register your car. You pay a fee, and then you can get into every state park and wildlife area in Colorado for the year without charge. Because of this pass, parks are finding that they're kind of getting overwhelmed with people coming to visit them, which is good, but the counties cannot afford to both pay for the roads that go to most of their homes and all the state roads. So this is to help them out and to make sure that we can have nice vacations all over Colorado with state parks and state wildlife areas. We will be, the areas have the option to charge $2 more per car. So nobody with a pass will get charged. But if you ride your bike or do a hoverboard or roller skate or whatever you're doing inside the park, you won't get charged. And it's an optional charge for them, and if they do that, then they can use that money to maintain their roads.
Thank you, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, what this does is it allows Colorado to continue to be the host of the rest of the world. Colorado is well branded. Everybody knows what our state flag looks like, and everybody's got a plan to come to Colorado. And after COVID, most of our state parks were overrun. There are 29 counties that host 45 state parks in the state of Colorado. One example is in Park County, 11 Mile and Spinney Lake, I believe, both state parks. The County of Park, 18,000 people, has spent 60% of its road budget on 28 miles of road from the highway back to those state parks. And they've got thousands of miles of county road. They can't use general fund on roads, so they're using their highway funds and all of those kind of dollars to take care of the road and help it be something that you would enjoy. Well, what's happening is that most of these roads are in such bad shape now, leading to state parks, that they're getting negatives on the internet about great place, bad road. Don't go there. My camper broke down because of their road. We need to help these counties. It's something the state of Colorado should be doing. And what we're doing is allowing these counties to charge a $2 fee on a day pass. If you have a license plate that paid the fee, you don't get charged. This will allow these counties to help defer some of the costs that they're incurring being the hosts for the state of Colorado. We will also be doing a study about how much damage and how much expense it costs these counties to where they can go back to maybe DNR, DOD, or CPW and start talking about how the state can help with this. But in the meantime, this is a stopgap, and I think it'll be good for them, and I think it'll be good for the state. Honestly, I want you to believe they taught me not to talk too much and say it's a good bill. Vote yes.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion on SB 23059? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23059. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. Looks like we can have nice things. SB 23059 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 3.
Okay, Mr. Shebel, can you please read the title of Senate Bill 3?
Senate Bill 3 by Senators Buckner and Gardner, also Representatives Weissman and Wilson, concerning a Colorado Department of Education partnership with a nonprofit entity to create a program for adult education and in connection therewith making appropriation.
Thank you, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the appropriations report to Senate Bill 23003.
Thank you. Can you move the bill as well while you're at it?
Oh, and I move Senate Bill 23003.
Excellent. Let's talk about the appropriations report first. Tell us about that.
Okay, in the appropriations report, they found that they could reduce the FTE from 1 FTE to 0.7, causing a little money savings in this.
That's always a good thing. Is there further discussion on the appropriations report to SB 23003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the appropriations report to SB 23003. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. Okay, the SB 23003 appropriations report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill creates a high school adult diploma program, a high school diploma program for adults. It is a public-private partnership where CDE will set the expectations for the diploma, and a nonprofit will run the program with most of the responsibility being on the nonprofit. The money set aside for, there's money set aside for this. This is a pilot program, so it's just for this year. And I would ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23003? Representative Holtorf, are you indicating you'd like to speak about it? Okay, Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we're moving so vivaciously through so many bills, which I think is good, there was a request from a constituent, and I told this constituent that I would honor this request. So I'm going to pull this up if you'll allow me, Madam.
Please do.
Let's see if I can do this without embarrassing myself. That's not it. Let's see here. And I don't want to improvise on those comments, but I could improvise and probably not be very far off from the comments. But so this, there we go. I think I got it. Thank you. And I thank the bill sponsor. The premise of this is good. What is trying to be done is good. But in the time that I have been involved in this, and I actually was involved in some legislation that in previous sessions was targeted to two areas, and my good colleague back there and he's going to understand, my good JBC representative, that targeted two areas, Aurora and Colorado Springs. And I got involved in a project that expanded that. Because I said it's not okay for state funds to just target two areas. They need to be distributed across the state. So the benefit to Colorado is the entire state. Now this particular legislation kind of follows that same kind of model. But I'm going to honor my constituent's request. This was a constituent of mine when I represented House District 64. in southeast Colorado, not my current constituent, but I wanted the chamber to understand a few things. This particular bill will include appropriation of $5 million, which will have, based on the timeline, will be very hard for outside entities to compete for this money if they're not right now ready to apply. One entity can meet the qualifications as outlined in the bill. And this is these XL centers. And they're owned by one company, I believe, known as Goodwill. The two areas I mentioned are Aurora and Colorado Springs. And I really like it when these things spread out and are offered to the whole state. That was my objection with a piece of legislation a few years ago. And this follows a similar pattern, which that's why it popped up on my radar. Because I've seen this kind of stuff before from one of the bill sponsors. Okay, the bill's going to get introduced, and we're moving forward with this request. But I'm really concerned with a couple things. That number one, this program, this bill, is going to send money to one specific entity, it looks like, without any type of competitive bid or opportunity for other entities to apply in these, public-private partnership arrangements. It almost feels like it's pre-canned or predestined, if you will. And I don't know how competitive that is, how open that is. Now, I don't want to pick on the bill sponsors too much. I have a lot more notes here, and I just don't want to do that. But I want to tell you that the bill has a cap on so many hundred of students. It's 400 students. And with respect to these online programs, it says unless they have taken 50% of their classes in person, that's detrimental for people living outside of these areas, Aurora and Colorado Springs. Now, I represent Northeast Colorado, and I want my people to be able to participate. And for those of us that have driven from Northeast Colorado, when I served in the National Guard, Madam Chair, when I served in the National Guard, I had to drive to Buckley Air Force Base, then National Guard Base, many times during the month. And that's a long drive to come in to do your military duty, your flight training, and other training. Also, when I served in Fort Carson, in my last job, I was the facility commander for the United States Army Reserve Center. Most people don't know that. I'd have to drive that 2.5 hours to do that duty. This went on for 3+ years. So the question I have and the issue I have is, does this and can people outside of these target areas participate? Is this available to the rest of the state? Or is this a targeted earmarked program for one particular entity that's owned by this one company that's been doing this in many other places across the nation? And are we just going to earmark this for those two areas and then the rest of Colorado can't participate? Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the good representative's questions. This bill requires a competitive bid just like any other government purchase in a sense. And it's also a pilot program. You would not want to spend the money to put a pilot program all over the state. So there are certain areas that will probably take place, but that's still up to the bid process on how that happens and where that happens. The other thing is this bid does have the, this bill works towards, and one big piece of this bill is those with disabilities being able to participate in this program. So this bill does have funding for transportation for those that aren't in the direct area and how they want to work that. But like I said, a lot of that stuff is still left up to the bid process. So again, I ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23003? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23003. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. SB 23003 is adopted. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Chair, I move to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 295.
Thank you. Mr. Shebel, can you please read the title of SB 23295?
Senate Bill 295 by Senators Roberts and Will, also Representatives McCluskey and Catlin, concerning the creation of the Colorado River Drought Task Force and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you, Speaker McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
I move Senate Bill 295 and the committee report from Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources.
Thank you. To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members in committee, we made a very small technical adjustment. We had referenced the wrong section of statute when the bill had come over from the Senate. We corrected that in the House. We had a terrific conversation with our colleagues about the merits of the Drought Security Task Force, and I urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there further conversation or discussion about the Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources report to SB 23295? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of that report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources report to SB 23295 is adopted. To the bill, Representative or Speaker McCluskey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I live in the most beautiful part of Colorado, and my district hosts the headwaters of the Colorado River. And all of us are acutely aware of the threats of a decades-long drought, the challenges of climate change, and what that drought, what those changes are bringing to our water future. Currently, 3.6 million Coloradans live in areas of drought. This threatens not only our water supplies, but our agricultural industry, our tourism and outdoor recreation industry. It threatens Colorado's economy. Coloradans all across the state are demanding that we take proactive steps to protect our water future and create a path where Colorado can be a leader in compact compliance and ensuring that not only our state, but that the western half of the United States has years and generations of water ahead. I want to say, though, that after 8 months of stakeholding and conversations with water interests and water groups, we were unable to bring forward the final policy, the policy that really would be that bold next step in protecting our water future. Senate Bill 295 creates a very formal process to bring water stakeholders together and to help address the river challenges through the River Drought Task Force. This task force will hold 12 meetings between July and the end of this year, all with significant experts, passionate leaders, ready to bring forth their best ideas on how we craft a plan to protect the future of our state. I'm particularly proud to say that we've included our tribal governments in this work, and I would like to turn this over to my co-prime, one of the leading experts when it comes to water, not only in our chamber, but in our state. And thank you, Representative Catlin, for your extraordinary years of service with the Colorado River District. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Speaker, I guess.
Members, what we're trying to do here is to give the state of Colorado an opportunity to take a breath. There have been competing ideas in this Capitol building of one, buying some water and putting it in the river and make sure that it's always there. The other one is to rent some water and say, if the crisis gets here, then we'll pay the rent and the water will go to them. Those two competing ideas were not getting anywhere. It was more of a loggerhead. So what this bill does is it says, wait a minute, why don't we create a task force with people from the Western Slope, who is where that community is probably going to be the most impacted by anything that happens with the Colorado River drought. We also had a little luck because Mother Nature decided that she would give us an abundance this year. Currently in my district, in my rivershed, it's we're about 171%, so there's a little breathing room for the state of Colorado, but we can't waste that breathing room. So this task force will be made up of people in the agricultural industry, in the water business, in the whole of the state of Colorado, particularly on the western slope, but we've also put membership and seating for the Northern District and for the Southeast District on this task force. They both get water from the western slope. They will be impacted by anything that happens on the Colorado River. And if you've been paying attention to the news, the Colorado River is in the news nearly daily. What this will do is allow Coloradoans to sit at the same table, take public input, and start crafting an idea that might work for the state of Colorado. Right now, the state of Colorado needs to be putting forward a united front when it comes to the people downstream from us, because they think that discord in Colorado is good for them. We in the state of Colorado need to show them, no, bring it to us, because we're not going to be separated. There are people on the south end of the Colorado River that continues today to overuse their allotment. One of the things the task force will look at is how can we say to them, until you quit, we won't help. These are the kind of things that the state of Colorado has always done. We've been a leader in the river. We've been leaders in water. In fact, the Colorado River water is called the Colorado River Water Law, the prior appropriation doctrine. These folks that will sit on this committee, on this task force, and they're going to report to us at the Interim Water Committee a couple of times during the summer. And before the end of December, they'll have some ideas as to what they could present to us that could craft legislation that will help the state of Colorado. This is a chance for farmers to sit together with fishermen and for farmers to prove that they're holding hands with the forests, because the forests generate all of that water to us. All of those people that are involved with this are going to have an opportunity to have input into what the state of Colorado's future should look like. What we're trying to do is to give Colorado an opportunity to decide its own future, rather than having people outside this basin try to decide it for us. This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23-295? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23-295. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. SB 23-295 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Chair, I'd like to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 291.
Thank you. With seeing no objection, we will proceed with 291. Representative Frizzell. Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently, we need to read the title again. So, Mr. Schiebel, you get an extra one tonight.
Senate Bill 291 by Senators Fenberg and Cutter, also Representatives Degree, Kennedy, and Martinez, concerning the Public Utilities Commission's regulation of energy utilities and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you very much. Representative Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to announce that after some very robust and good conversation, we have arrived at an amendment. So I would like to move Amendment L032 to Senate Bill 291 and ask that it be displayed appropriately.
Thank you. L032 has been moved and is properly displayed. Tell us about your amendment, Representative Frizzell.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. This is an amazing amendment. You all are going to love it. Love it, I say. All right, so this amendment we have worked on together to ensure that development that is in progress will receive the benefit of the gas line extension allowance. And so this extends this date to December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also love this amendment, and we are happy to work with those that were on the Finance Committee, particularly those are my colleague from Douglas County and from Broomfield, and we also request an aye vote.
Excellent. Is there further discussion on L032? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L032 to SB 23-291. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. SB 23-291, the L032 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, that this has been continuously stakeholdered, as you've seen just now. We want to make sure that we are bringing as many people as we could in this. We think this is going to be really helpful in addressing the needs that were brought up in the Joint Select Committee and really being able to add some consumer protections in from what had happened. And we request an aye vote.
Thank you. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the amendment because there's a lot of moving parts in a development, and then to uproot it like that would be a problem for developers that would have widespread implications. Still, I think this is going to have this overall idea that is on an incredibly faulty premise but for some constituents that really wanted to make sure that we understood the nature of this. On behalf of the Americans for Prosperity and our thousands of activists across the state, I'm asking you to vote no. These votes may be recorded on our legislative scorecard. Colorado's long-term energy costs.
Representative DeGraff, if you could avoid mentioning certain organizations or any organizations at the well, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colorado's long-term energy costs are driven by systemic issues, not short-term volatility. Much of this links back to government renewable mandates, not gas prices. This bill completely ignores this side of the equation. A better approach would be to analyze mandates that have led to this moment and address those directly. While SB 291 may be well-intended, the results of this passage will lead to more top-down regulation and further grant the Commission increased discretion with vaguely written rules. It is for this reason I'm asking you to vote no. And one of the things in the very beginning here in the bill summary is it talks about the instability of the fuel market, and the instability of the fuel market is entirely government imposed. We had a very robust fuel market in the United States. We are becoming one of the leading exporters of this fuel. We were exporting fuel to Germany, in fact. Now Germany, as strategic partner, is reliant on natural gas from Russia, which creates obviously some and then you have the Ukraine, and then you have these volatility issues while the fuel market is volatile, the culprit is not the fuel, the culprit is government. And the reason that the culprit is government is because we have it's not a faulty understanding, it's a misunderstanding of science, and it's based on a narrative of fear. So because of the amendment, I don't need to talk about projects, we don't need to talk, here's one. What will drive up energy costs farther? That will be a monopolistic control. And what will give a monopolistic control on energy will be not putting gas lines in. So right now, people have an option. They can go towards gas, they can go towards electric. The installation of the gas lines is not probably all that significant an impact on the house, especially when it's put into the development and it's all done in accordance. Now, if you get a gas line installed after the fact, yes, it's a very expensive proposition. Another one, a name, interim director, executive director for an organization which has been the voice of the Western Slope for 7 decades. We ask you to take the time to read our letter, and so I will. As the voice of the Western Slope for 7 decades, we are proud to represent individuals, municipalities, local elected officials, and businesses from some of Colorado's largest industries. The organization understands that energy is an important and difficult topic to have conversations on at the moment. We also understand that the world is changing and we must protect our beloved Colorado. And I agree, we must protect our beloved Colorado, and converting a hydrocarbon into carbon dioxide and water, both of which make plants grow. And it's water that has a significant impact on the atmospheric energy, not carbon dioxide, but neither one of those are pollutants. Protecting Colorado means we must protect the people who reside within the state. We support the mission to improve balance and overall adequacy of our energy resources in a manner which will help accomplish economic growth, promote energy price stability, improve the environment, maximize reliability and abundance of diversified source. Regrettably, the organization notes that 291 utility regulation fails to accomplish some of these qualities most important to our organization regarding energy that will help both producers and consumers in the energy industry. If the legislation passes, it has the potential to increase harmful impacts of the rising energy costs that consumers are already experiencing, due in part to the restrictive regulation the restrictive regulations to Colorado energy companies that this bill would impose. The organization believes that having input from technical and industry experts and that some of it should be adequately reflected with regulatory oversight. On this bill and every piece of legislation, it is important for stakeholder process. We urge you to reconsider the effects. So these are So while I'm actively ignoring my colleague from Loveland, this is an unnecessary bill. This increases regulation, it increases reliance, it increases a dependence on electricity, which again, currently the pollution for, if you consider it pollution, the footprint for electricity is about double that of natural gas. So on any sort of climate issue, it's going in the wrong direction. It's putting more regulation, it's putting more cost, and it's driving us towards an electrical monopoly. If you have an electrical monopoly, you further stress your grid. If you further stress your grid, it is just more vulnerable. We need to get out of regulating based on fear, based on non-science. If you want to know the science, we can talk about it. This is based on non-science. This non-science hurts Colorado. This does not help Colorado. This further constrains Colorado, constrains the options of Colorado. It forces Colorado into an electrical dependence. It hurts Colorado. It hurts Coloradans. It drives up prices. It is demanding the installation of thousands of acres of solar panels, thousands of windmills, thousands of miles and all of these things are being blocked by environmental groups. I urge you all to learn the science, because this energy policy that we're pursuing is not just hurting Coloradans, it's killing Coloradans. Please vote no on this bill.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate our companion from El Paso County, and we urge an aye vote on the bill.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on SB 23291? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23291 as amended. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. SB 23291 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 263.
Excellent. Mr. Shebel, saying we will proceed out of order for SB 23-263, seeing no objection. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of SB 23-263.
Senate Bill 263 by Senator Priola, also Representatives Velasco and Epps, concerning a loan from the general fund to the Natural Disaster Mitigation Enterprise to defray expenses incurred before the receipt of fee revenue or revenue bond proceeds.
Thank you. Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I am very proud to present this bill. This is an administrative bill that's going to help our Department of Public Safety get a small loan to pay to set up their enterprise for natural disaster mitigation. And yeah, we...
And Representative Velasco, could you please move the bill as well?
I move Senate Bill 263 to the...
Just move it. You're good. You don't have to move it anywhere. We're just right here. Thank you. And Representative Epps.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We, the collective we, ask for an aye vote.
Excellent. Is there further discussion on SB 23-263? I think the baby has everybody dumbfounded. So for the moment, all in favor of SB 23-263, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Okay, cuteness wins. SB 23-263 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader, or...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the consideration of Senate Bill 148.
Thank you. Mr. Shebel, please read the title again of SB 23-148.
Senate Bill 148 by Senator Cutter, also Representative Lindsay, concerning property used to illegally manufacture drugs and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Thank you. And Representative Taggart, we are back to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank
Representative Lindsay.
Well, let me first move it. I move Amendment 007 to SB 148 and ask that it be properly displayed. Before I say anything, I want to thank these two folks here that helped me a great deal on this particular amendment, because I was stumbling with that conflict between disclosure and not disclosure and what that does to a buying and selling relationship. And what we came up with is this.
Hold on, we're still waiting for, oh, now we have it. Okay. The amendment has been moved and is properly displayed. Now please proceed, Representative Taggart.
Thank you. So this, if you recall, there's a database, and that database stays for a rolling 5 years. And all we're asking by this amendment, as they form this database, is to have a field that clearly states whether a property has a certificate of compliance, which means the remediation has been complete, or it doesn't. It's just that simple. And that way, we don't put buyers and sellers in a conflict position that both sides of the equation know the status. And I would ask for an aye on this particular amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many thanks to the bill sponsor. We had a great discussion on this. We had a long one in the committee, and then we sat down here and we hammered a lot of things out. And I should rise in support of this amendment. The key takeaway from this that was my major concern was the protection of both the buyer and the seller. And a conflict in the way the original wording was is it could be accused of, oh, well, you didn't tell me. Well, they didn't have to tell them. And now we're saying as part of the disclosure documents that the seller says, hey, here's the website, go here. Then the buyer goes there and looks up on the website with CDPHE and says, yay, there it is right there. It's remediated, it's not remediated, this is the status. So now everyone has full disclosure. And that, all parties gave the thumbs up on that, and that was a great thing. So I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank my colleagues from Mesa County, from Douglas County. We had a pretty quick conversation out there in a hot and sweaty lobby, but we found a path. We found wording that worked for everybody. And I thank you for the dialogue, and I support this amendment. Please vote yes.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion on L007? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L007 to SB 23-148. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. L007 is adopted. Is there any further discussion on SB 23-148? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of SB 23-148. All in favor, please say aye. As amended, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. SB 23-148 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Chair, I move to lay over Senate Bill 271 until tomorrow.
Okay, seeing no objection, SB 23-271 will be laid over till tomorrow. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Thank you. Seeing the enthusiasm, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Shebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, the Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it is under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 3 is amended 59, 148 is amended 248, 263, 291 is amended 295 is amended 297, 299 passed on second reading order, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 164, 271, and 282 laid over until May 6, 2023.
Representative Kipp. The motion, thank you, Representative. You have heard the motion. The motion before us is that the House adopt the Committee of the Whole report. There are no amendments at the desk. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representatives Bradfield, Froelich, Herod, I think Lynch is excused. Valdez is excused. Excused, Bradfield and Lynch excused. Please close the machine. With 38 aye, 10 no, and 17 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Members, we've got some business to tend to. First of all, Conference Committee for Senate Bill 16. The House conferees are McCormick as chair, Sirota, and Soper. Also, reports of committees of reference, Mr. Shebel.
Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following Senate Bill 304 be amended as followed and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate appoints.
Message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of resolution.
House Resolution 1006 by Representative McCluskey concerning the approval by the House of Representatives of the Speaker's appointment of Daniel Wolf as the Independent Ethics Commission.
House Resolution 1006 will be laid over one day under House rules. Yeah, approps. Representative Sirota. Thank you. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow morning, House Appropriations will meet at 8 a.m. to hear, in the Old State Library, to hear Senate bills, they're all Senate bills, 25, 145, 212, 267, 286, 298, 303, 306, and any other bill that gets referred from its committee of reference.
Thank you. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow.
The balance of the calendar will be laid over until tomorrow, May 6th. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in adjournment until 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 6th.
The House is adjourned until 9 a.m. Saturday, May 6th. Refrigerator? Yes.
Folks, label it or lose it in the fridge.